Do you think all hot glues are the same? Let's find out. Hi there, welcome to the Upcycle Design Lab. My name's Cindy and I craft using recycled and repurposed materials to give you ideas on ways to make and create more economically and ecologically. Now, if you're like me and you like crafting, you probably use a lot of different glues, and I frequently find myself using hot glue. But I'll be honest with you, I thought forever that all the hot glues were pretty much the same. I thought they grabbed pretty quickly, didn't hold super tight, and certainly couldn't stand up to any heat. So there are a lot of hot glues on the market, but I am testing the three that I think are pretty readily available at most craft stores and big box stores. And like I said, I've always thought that the glues were pretty much the same, but obviously the pricing is a little bit different. So these are all 30 glue sticks of the full size, and the first one is by AdTech, and I paid $3.97. The second one is Surebonder, and I paid $4.20. And the last one is the Gorilla Glue, and I paid $5.97 for that. And I bought them all at the same place, so there definitely is a price range of glue sticks when you're shopping for them. So I'm very curious to know if there really is a stronger bond with any of these, if any of them hold up to heat stress better than others. I do only have the one full-size glue gun. I just got it. It's very exciting. It's a cordless Surebonder glue gun. And if you're interested in that, you can find that unboxing and review in the comment section of this video, or the description box. And I think that's it. Let's just get into some of the testing. I'm going to start with the Surebonder glue just because that's what I have currently in my glue gun. And of course there are thousands of things you could test and glue together, but I'm just going to try to do a few different materials. I have a little ceramic knob that I'm going to glue to some metal. I have this sort of hard plastic piece that I'm going to glue some plastic caps to. I have a little piece of floor linoleum, and I'm going to use a cap for that as well. And then I have a couple of pieces of wood that I'm going to use for the testing also. I'm going to try as much as I can to get the same amount of glue every time, but like I said, I have to do each glue separately just because I only have the one glue gun. I should also mention that I heated up the gun between each of my tests. So I made sure that I had a nice hot glue gun, and then I did all of the gluing with one of the glues and then switched to the next glue, made sure the gun was heated up again, etc., just to try to keep everything as constant and similar as possible. I also decided to test each of the glues on some parchment paper just to get a feel for whether any of them had a different kind of flow to them when they were coming through the glue gun. My first finding on comparing these three glues is that the flow coming out of the glue gun was all pretty similar. I do feel like maybe the Gorilla Glue takes a little longer to heat up, but that's just, I could be totally wrong on that, but it seemed like it needed a little more, it was a little harder to pump towards the end when I was doing the writing. The other thing about these three glues is that you can see from the packaging that the AdTech, they're called crystal clear glue sticks. And so I was kind of hoping that they would be a little more transparent, but I think you can see from this that they're all pretty much the same. This top one is the Surebonder, the middle one is the AdTech Crystal Clear, and the bottom is the Gorilla Glue. And I would say that as far as how they finish, they're all pretty opaque and not very transparent. So I was a little disappointed with that because I thought I wasn't expecting this to be totally transparent, but I was hoping that it would be a little more clear and transparent than the other two. My first sample here is the linoleum with the plastic lids, and I didn't do the greatest job of getting an even amount of glue on here. I think the Surebonder doesn't have nearly as much glue as the other two, but we'll just proceed and see what happens here. So I'm just going to try to pop these lids off and I'll have to just kind of assess how hard it is to do that. I'm going to start with the Surebonder. It came right off of the plastic and stayed on the linoleum. I would say those two came off about equally. So let's try the Gorilla Glue because it is supposed to be the strongest, so I am curious to see what will happen here. Not a notable difference on any of those. I would say they were pretty easy. All of them were fairly easy to pop off. They obviously adhered to the linoleum much better than the plastic caps. And I suspect that might happen on this next test as well, but we'll see. This is the plastic on plastic. And again, I don't know, I did a better job, I think, of getting even amounts of glue on there. So I'll start with the Surebonder again. That was harder to get off. That was quite a bit harder, which is surprising, but anyway. This is harder too. I can't believe I can't get those off. I would expect them to pop off the glue just like they did here on this linoleum piece, which is very strange. But I cannot get them off. Oh, there goes the Gorilla Glue. I'm stunned that I can't get this off. Just to prove to you that I was trying, I cut my finger on that last test trying to get those caps off. I understand this is not terribly scientific and you're just kind of trusting my assessment of how hard these things are to take on and off. So I'm starting with the Gorilla Glue. And it's coming off, I think. Or it may be breaking the stick. I'm going to move to the AdTech just for the sake of sakes. Oh, that came right off. And the Surebonder, that's coming right off too. So let's go back to the Gorilla Glue because it definitely was holding better on the wood. But it is, I think, it's going to break the stick. So I would definitely say wood on wood, the Gorilla Glue is a stronger hold. One other thing to note about the glues is that the Surebonder glue, which is this one, does not have this information, but the AdTech glue says to store it below 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and the Gorilla Glue says to store it below 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So that would indicate to me that the Gorilla Glue should hold up a little bit better to the heat stress test. So for the heat stress test, I've hung my samples in my doorway, and I'm just testing the temperature between my screen door and my front door once the sunshine hits this area. So right now it's pretty mild temperature-wise. It's only 50 degrees. But once the sun hits this area, this space really heats up. I know because I've tried to hang wreaths and other things in the doorway, and typically the glues fail pretty quickly. Hey, if you're enjoying today's content, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and check that bell icon so you're notified when I upload new videos. So hopefully you can see this. I've reached over 120 degrees on my thermometer. It's past the top, so I think it's kind of at its highest temperature. And so far everything seems to be holding pretty well. So it's a little after 2 and I just heard one of the balls drop on the ground here. So let's see which one failed first. It's the AdTech, which kind of makes sense. It was the cheaper glue. So I got a little distracted and I'm not exactly sure what time the Surebonder glue fell down, but it was sometime around 4:30, I'm thinking. So I have a clear winner here. The Gorilla Glue is still holding on. The sun is heading down now, but it still says it's about 90 degrees between the doors here. So definitely the Gorilla Glue is the winner in this category. Because I'd gotten sort of surprising results on the plastic, I decided to retest all of the glues with the caps on the linoleum and on the plastic piece. And I'm going to back up here and share a little glue nerdiness with you now. But there are three factors that come into play when you are using hot glue. The first one is the glue temperature when you apply the glue. And I'm assuming that I was fairly consistent with that because I made sure that my glue gun was heated every time I switched glues. And I used the same glue gun, so I'm assuming that I had a pretty consistent temperature when I was applying the glue. The second thing is what they call open time, which is the time between adding the glue and combining the two pieces that you're putting together. And again, I think I was fairly consistent on those measurements. But the third thing, which is perhaps the most important thing, is the compression that you add to the pieces when you are putting them together. And while I tried to stay consistent on those things, there was no way for me to really measure that. So when I went back on this second test, I did try to put a little more compression on all of the caps as I was putting the pieces together. And you'll note from this video that I had some surprising results. I had totally different glues that I couldn't get separated from the linoleum and the plastic pieces. So my conclusion is very mixed on these glues. I do think that the Gorilla Glue has some properties that make it more worth paying a little bit more money for, particularly the heat stress test. But if you are gluing plastics together, I got very mixed results on all three of these glues, and I do tend to think that they are similar in a lot of ways, particularly because it is very difficult to make sure that you're using the same compression. And sometimes if you're actually working on a project, you're not going to be using a lot of pressure to put two pieces together because of the items that you're gluing. You don't want to, squish them really hard. The other thing is that you don't generally want to squeeze glue out of the bottom of what you're gluing together. So I honestly don't know what my conclusion is about the AdTech and the Surebonder glue. I do think they're quite similar, and perhaps you could just go with the cheaper glue for a lot of your hot glue projects. So this slide shows you my findings, and while it is a little bit unscientific, I do hope that it gives you some insight into how these glues work and gives you a better idea of what glue you might choose for your next project. If you're interested in finding out more about the Surebonder cordless glue gun, you can check the link below, or if you'd like to find out more information about glues, I have an entire playlist you can check out as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you back here soon in the lab.